What I have to say in this video is mainly for people that I've trained, because it changes a procedure. So I'm just going to go right into it. The procedure I'm talking about is identities, and how to process out the identities or the false selves or me's that we take on, that inhibit us and turn out to be detrimental. In fact, I took some notes. Please forgive me for referring to some notes I took for this talk. But to express it this way: the taking on, maintaining, and being encased in the facade of a particular way of being and of presenting yourself as being. That says it better. It says better than identity or false self. I'll say that again. The taking on, maintaining, and being encased in the facade of a particular way of being and of presenting yourself as being. And as opposed to the natural state of being, which I would say is flexible and fluid and not solidly encased in being and presenting the same characteristics and attitudes forever and in every situation. Being present and being free of any compulsion or programming to automatically be a certain way. The ideal would be to be completely present and taking in whatever is happening without some programmed way of presenting yourself in being maintained through life, which really takes you out of the game and out of appreciating what's going on, and out of functioning as well as you can. Now, I've been using for some time what I call false me handling, and another form of addressing these false selves, which addresses when we've had casted on us a personality or identity from others. Personality image projection, it's called. And that also happens all the time when we engage with other people. We kind of project out, this is who you are to me, and this is who I am to you, and we do that with each other, instead of simply being present without the need to maintain a facade of self, of being a certain way. And what we're addressing now is the former, not the latter. The former being when a person chooses to take on a facade of a particular way of being and of presenting yourself as being. And I've been working from, you could say, the matrix of a procedure called Presence 3, which was authored by Alan Walter. But over the years, I've revised it several ways and several times to remove parts that were superfluous and not necessary, to change it various ways to make it better, and to add a few steps to make it even more pervasive and efficient. Now, I have just come to fully recognize a very important change. Those of you who are watching this who have been my clients, just about all of you have experienced the identity processing, as we've called it, the addressing of identities that you've taken on. And there's one step which is sometimes can be kind of magical and very interesting, that came from Alan Walter, where you basically, I ask you repetitively a series of questions. Where is the identity? Where are you? How big is the identity? How big are you? Repetitively in that order, and it eventually should and can and nearly always does wind up with that identity, that presentation of self, that programmed attitude of this is who I am, going away, vanishing, and it's a wonderful feeling. It's a peaceful and almost exuberant feeling as well when that happens. But having done that step many times, thousands of times, and various numbers of times on each individual, because we all have a collection of these false selves, that step can become cumbersome. That step can go on for a long time, with that identity sticking around, asserting itself, and not cooperatively going away, at least not going away efficiently. It can go on for some time. And over the past couple of years, I tend to be very empathic and recognize what's happening in a person. I've recognized very often when this happens, when it keeps sticking around in this process. I recognize that the person has what I call a stubbornly held protective attitude. See, there is an attitude present that supports holding on to this facade, an attitude of self. I mean, it seems as though the attitude is just asserting itself, doing this by itself, but actually the person himself has some stubbornly held protective attitude, born out of a desperation that necessitates the attitude, and thus the person's unwillingness to be without it. So there's some sort of attitude that says, I must maintain this false way of being. It protects me. I can't be without it. Of course, infused into that and behind that is some sort of anxiety, fear, terror, desperation of what would happen if the person didn't have that shield, that attitude, that programming to present and use in place of just being there and being present with what is encountered or who is encountered. So what I've recognized is that a lot of these steps that have been part of this identity processing that was born originally out of Alan Walder's Presence 3 can be undercut and be made not necessary by making a standard part of the procedure to ask, is there some thought, idea, or attitude you have that says that you must maintain this false way of being and presenting yourself? And I've realized, and it's borne out in recent sessions, that there is always such a thing. There's always some stubbornly held protective attitude that says, well, I've got to hold this in place because I'm toast without it. I can't, without it, I can be humiliated, embarrassed, I can be hurt, I can be rejected, I can be found to be unworthy, I can be a total failure without this attitude, this false sense of self being projected and held in place. So, in order to process the identity, again, the taking on, maintaining, and being encased in the facade of a particular way of being and of presenting yourself as being, we need to find and address the attitude that supports holding on to this facade, and thereby what holds that in place. We need to process and fully resolve, digest, and completely clear away the desperation in the person, the fear and anxiety that necessitates in them the maintaining of the attitude that supports being this false self, this false facade. Now, we all ideally want to be and feel free to be our natural selves, devoid of any pretense and not stuck in any programming of how to be. But because of that fear and anxiety around being exposed to confrontations and engaging with others that we fear will hurt us, a person gets caught up in the conflict of, I need to be free of this false self, and I need it. I can't safely be without it. So the key to that is to ask for and get that supporting attitude that holds the maintaining of the false self in place. And the key to that is what I call the spiritually digesting, the spiritual digestion, the fully absorbing and processing of the feelings of anxiety and desperation that make a person feel that they just need that shield. They need to be protected by that attitude that says, I gotta be this other thing. I gotta present myself this way. I gotta be this self that maintains and shows this attitude, because of what would happen to me if I didn't. See that fear, that anxiety. It's extremely processable, and now we know. That's the thing to ask for. So all of those of you that I've trained and have been training, bear this in mind and reach out to me, and I will provide you with an updated and revised steps of the technique for resolving the taking on, maintaining, and being encased in the facade of a particular way of being and of presenting yourself as being, so that you can use this with your clients and have even greater and more fabulous success, give that person more relief, and do it so much more directly. And those of you who are not reading this for understanding so that you can yourself do this kind of work with others, well, believe me, you're going to love experiencing this revision of the technique, this revise. It's very powerful. And you're going to get to that feeling of feeling free and light and relieved and calm and even exuberant, and feel this wonderful wholeness and peace within yourself. So look me up. Ready when you are.